I feel good about the situation, circumstances. I've always felt comfortable and confident about this team. I know it's been an unconventional way to get to the playoffs, but we're fine with that because now we're in, and now it's 0-0 as far as we're concerned, and you look at records and people want to point to things. Okay, yeah, they're 11-5, and they're 11-5 for a reason, but that's okay. I mean, we played the way we did in December, and we're fine with that as well. So we look forward to the opportunity.
Yeah, it's a second season. Rivera says it's unconventional, but they're here. They're starting all over. Feeling pretty good about their playoff situation. Carolina is only the second team with a losing record to reach the postseason. And the last was the 2010 Seahawks, who beat the Saints on a Beastquake run by Marshawn Lynch. But they got it together last month, and the Panthers, are now 4-0 in December. And their defense has only given up 43 points over the last 4 games. So completely legitimate question with obviously some hesitation from some. But, Stephen A., who do you think will win?
I see the Carolina Panthers winning this football game basically by default. Although they've been playing well, they've won 4 straight. Cam Newton is to be applauded for the way that he's looking and the way that he's led this team. This defense has now upgraded significantly, Skip, compared to what it used to be. Last year they were ranked number 2, and then this year for the first half of the season we couldn't even recognize them. But now they've got it together with Charles Johnson leading the way, with Luke Kuechly and those boys leading the way. They are playing some big-time football right now, and they're to be commended. They destroyed the Atlanta Falcons, and I firmly believe they got Mike Smith fired, because if Atlanta had won that game, or dare I say been highly competitive, I think his job might have gotten saved if Carolina had not ramrodded the Atlanta Falcons the way that they did just this past Sunday. But with that all being said, I'm of this mindset, Skip. The Arizona Cardinals don't have a chance because they don't have a quarterback. This dude, Ryan Lindley, I don't care how respectable or decent he looked last week, he's just not that impressive. He's completing about 48% of his passes. He's got 2 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. And when you combine that with the fact that they don't have much of a running game because Andre Ellington is on IR, and they've got to rely on this dude, what is his name, Kerwin Williams or whatever his name is. He's averaging about 4.5 yards a carry, but he hasn't rushed the ball that much. You're going to need this dude, who's relatively unproven, to step into the fray and to make sure that those safeties and all of those boys can crowd the line of scrimmage as opposed to dropping back in coverage so Lindley can have targets to throw the football to. Floyd and Fitzgerald and those boys are more than capable, but Lindley is not, in my estimation. I don't give Arizona any kind of chance in this game. I could be wrong because the defense could make some things happen against Carolina, but I think that Carolina has a bevy of individuals to give the ball to out of the backfield. And in the end, they've got Cam Newton, who can run with the football, who's a playmaker, and he can throw the football. Kelvin Benjamin could make some noise, but Skip, we're going to see about your boy, Patrick Peterson, and let's see what he does. Because he's talked a lot this year. We saw him talk and then get smoked in one game, and Arians called him out. In this particular game against a rookie in Kelvin Benjamin, you've got to be a shutdown corner. And you've got to handle your business against that brother, because if you can't, I think that doesn't look good for him. But I suspect he'll show up for the challenge. I think Arizona's defense will answer the call, and I don't think not Arizona's defense, but I think that ultimately Carolina's defense will show up, and Lindley will be no match for them, and Carolina will basically win by default. I see Carolina winning this game somewhere along the lines of 33-17.
Really?
Yeah.
I think it's going to be much closer than that and much lower scoring than that. And I must admit to you, Stephen A., I am rooting for Arizona in this game just because I feel sorry for Arizona, because I do think for much of this year they were a very good team, arguably the best team in the conference. And then, as you point out, you lose Carson Palmer and you lose Ellington, and all of a sudden you're groping and you're down to your third-string quarterback, and they deserve a better fate than this. But that's my heart talking, and my head is with you. I do think Cam and company, Cam and his defense, will win a low-scoring 17-13 game, because all of a sudden Carolina has won, as you point out, 4 in a row, while Arizona has lost 4 out of 6. And something has happened. There's been significant changes both in that defense and in that quarterback. Because that defense, Stephen A., they went with the 2 rookies in the secondary, which is hide your eyes, but has turned out very well. And all of a sudden, it has allowed Kuechly and Charles Johnson and Thomas Davis to start playing again at what we saw a year ago when they were at almost superstar levels. And as Kerry points out, that defense has barely allowed more than 10 points a game over its 4 victories. That defense got after Matt Ryan, sacked him 6 times in Atlanta. And that brings me to that quarterback, and Kerry certainly knows him far better than I do, but it just seems like from a distance that the auto accident that Cam basically walked away from as his truck rolled, I think it was a life-changing experience. Kerry, you might want to jump in and talk about it, but it just seemed like something changed. And Ron Rivera has talked about how Cam seems a little different now, a little different perspective. Maybe it took a little pressure off. Maybe it wasn't just all about football. But I love the way Cam's played since the auto accident.
No, you're right
and
about Skip.
Again,
you're right. You're right. You're absolutely
jump
right.
in if you'd like to.
He's played much more free. He's not worried about the little things anymore. I think he was really consumed with what people were saying, and all season long he was having obviously a bad season. He was listening to what we call that white noise, what people had to say about his play and the team. And after the auto accident, he said quite simply, that doesn't matter. He's playing so much more free now. So I think it gave him new life in more ways than one. And you certainly hinted to that as well as their coach did. So I think that they will play well. And you know, I'm with you. I think he'll win because, again, it's just a different perspective. He's such a different person, and not saying drastically different, but just a different perspective, just a tweak, and something like that would happen.
Well, that's all it takes. So, again, is he up against go ahead, Stephen.
I was getting ready to say, you know, all of that is cool, y'all, but he's going against Ryan Lindley.
That's true.
I mean, the guy.
That's another perspective.
We can slice it any way you want to, but I mean, if you're going up against a dude that can't throw, you know, can't find targets, can't find a way to put points on the board, you know, I'm sure, you know, if you have a life-altering experience and you walk away from something like that, I get it, but it helps when you're going up against a dude that some would say does not belong in this league.
All right, so we were talking about. You want to say something, Skip? Go ahead.
Yeah, real quick. I get that. I get that. But just, I got to defend the Cardinals defense one last time here, Stephen A. Cam is actually going up against what is still a very good defense. I think he's going to have to fight for every inch he gets against this defense. Yeah, the problem with that, Skip, is that too many times we keep just looking at the defense and the offense as separate entities. They're a team for a reason. Sometimes your offense is so bad that having to go back on the field after every 3 and out, you can't move the chains. Ultimately, fatigue kicks in, frustration kicks in, demoralization kicks in. When we started the show talking about Florida State, what was the one thing Kirk Herbstreit said? Florida State quit in the fourth quarter. Now, you could quit because of your own mistakes, and on NFL level, in this particular case, you might end up quitting because, because there's just no hope. We saw it with the New York Jets. We know Rex Ryan can coach defense, but what happened when Geno Smith and Michael Vick and those boys kept doing 3 and outs? Eventually, you collapse.
All right, gentlemen. Look, we wrap with a conversation of one Heisman winner. Let's talk about some other Heisman winners. Mariota got the best of Jameis Winston last night at the Rose Bowl. We saw that. But if you had to take a quarterback right now, who would you take? The gentleman will weigh in after the break.